Thrilled to see so many of you. That itself indicates the importance of today's topic. Welcome you all. As most of the past sessions, this session is also organized by Ontario Konkani Association and Sringeri Vidya Bharati Foundation. At this juncture, it gives me a great pleasure in presenting to you the newly elected presidents of OKA, Anita and Vivek Nayak. By the way, for the 5 years in a row, the first public function by the newly elected OKA president have been our information sessions. So welcome in Anita and Vivek. For a couple of minutes, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Sadanand ma'am. What better way to start our term as new presidents than to open this very important webinar on senior living. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. Hopefully, we are all vaccinated, and as Canada continues to open up, I hope you're all beginning to enjoy the many things that have been unavailable to us for the last 16 months. Can you all put yourself on mute?
You are muted.
Please put yourself on mute.
Even bantappa. Mute.
Okay, so thank you SVBF for supporting this webinar. Thank you Sureka for helping us host it. And thanks to all our presenters for speaking on this very relevant topic. My co-president and better half, Vivek, is one of the presenters today, along with Mahesh Nileshwar. And Niranjan Kamath and Pramod Udyawar will speak about their personal experiences as well. As much as we all hope and pray that we should be healthy and active until the very end, we know that this is not in our hands. The reality is often very different. The process of making senior care choices can be complex. Understanding all our options well in advance will ensure we can continue to live a worry-free life. So I'm sure today's presentation will be quite helpful in this regard. Before I hand off to Sadanand ma'am, I would like to remind everyone of OKA's next event on August 29th. It's Shravan Sunday. It's a cook along. Come join us for a live, interactive and fun cook along of traditional Konkani recipes. The menu and instructions will be sent ahead of time, and you can either choose to cook along with us or just watch and enjoy the show. More details will follow next week. And I will be back to Sadanand ma'am. I will be monitoring the chat box. Please enter your questions in the chat box and we will answer all your questions at the end. So back to you, Sadanand ma'am.
Thank you, Anita. As I understand, since 2015 or so, the population of those who are 65 years or over has been larger than that of 18 or under. This gap seems to be growing exponentially. And it is predicted that in just a few years, the seniors population will surpass 25%. In doing that, we will also have more people in their 80s, 90s, and over. Interestingly, the growth amongst over 100 is also alarming. That means there will be more people depending on others to support and services. Fortunately, there are a number of publicly and privately funded services ready to assist, but the system is quite complex. Members on today's panel have a great deal of knowledge and experience in this field. With their presentation, they will try to make this complex system easier to understand. Today, Mahesh Nileshwar will educate us about the home care, and Vivek Nayak will talk about the long-term care. Other panel members, Niranjan Kamath and Pramod Udyawar, with their first-hand experiences, will further familiarize us with these services during the question and answer sessions. With pleasure, I pass on the control to Mahesh Nileshwar. Mahesh.
Thank you, Ma'am. I will share my screen and then I'll introduce myself. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Shri Bhavani Shankaraya Namaha. Om Shri Matre Namaha. My name is Mahesh Nilashwar. I'm an executive director of SACHA, which stands for South Asian Community and Health Association. We run programs for seniors. And I'm also the founder of Nirvana Not-for-Profit Retirement Housing Corporation, which is working towards finding a solution for our community having its own retirement home. As in life, everybody's an expert on everything, but you need some backing to say that your knowledge and experience is accepted by the community. So in addition to all my IT certifications on the side, I am CPCA, which stands for Certified Professional Consultant on Aging, as mental health is also a result of isolation of seniors and youth and the stress of life. I am mental health first aid certified and Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. These are all helpful in the community work that I do. So first, let's try to understand the spectrum of care. We all use these terms very lightly. So where we are today is called active adult living. And then we move on to something called as independent living. Either you're living in your homes independently or you're moving into a retirement home, which is designated as an independent living home. As we grow older, we need assistance in normal things we do. So that's called assisted living. When you have a health issue, that is when people cannot take care of you at home, then you might move into a long-term care. We will not be talking about hospice and palliative care today, but we can sometime later. And then sometimes you might have to come back from the long-term care back to your home. So what happens? You might be sick, you might have some ailment for which you are in the hospital and you're sent home, but you're not qualified to be in a long-term care. So what happens? So that's the continuing care, which is part of the home care. So continuing care will be where Lynn or CCAC will be sending a PSW, a personal support worker, to your home on the hospital's behalf to take care of you. They might only provide you a few hours in a day or during a week. So you might need additional help for which you might have to hire or have private home care. So that brings us to the spectrum of care. So we will look at each one of these today. Adult communities, active adult communities. You live in community with people who not only share your interests, passions, and who will also expose you to new and exciting opportunities and become great friends along the way. A couple of months ago, I did a seminar on job career. And one of the major questions was, what do we do as seniors as we live longer? How can we have a second career? So if you are an active adult, you could have a second career. So that's active adult communities where you can live with and exchange ideas with other seniors. How much does it cost? So a small town, let's say, these prices that I'm going to be presenting today are before COVID. So you will have to add at least 10-15% more as you go forward. So how much does it cost for an active adult community? A small town bungalow with the square footage mentioned. Okay, 1 second. would cost you around 250,000 plus. Lakefront would cost you. So these are approximate costs for an active adult community. And rental costs. So those are costs for buying your own unit in an active adult community. And these are rental. Of course, costs range widely between different cities and towns. And you will need to consult each community to learn costs and what exactly you get when you buy. So there are certain services that might not be covered in your rent, so you need to ask them. Some prices might surprise you in terms of how low an investment this style of living can be. This is because developers package costs in a variety of ways, so don't assume these are apples to apples comparison. In some cases, you may be purchasing a home and property with maintenance fees, so something like a condo, which could be extra. So you have to ask the relevant questions before you buy or rent. And this is what being presented is only a small survey. So this community offers exclusivity and privacy like no other. Fees often cover in the rental units condo fees, grass cutting, snow removal, and variety of other fees. So you might want to check that also. Independent living. The main benefit, so you assume like your kids are grown up, they have moved away or they've gone to a different country, you cannot manage in a huge house. What do? So you want to decide to move into independent, that's when you are independent living. Independent living is a style of seniors care right for active, self-sufficient, and autonomous seniors who want to live in a community of people their age with similar interests. So it is, residents at independent retirement homes look after most of their own needs. So you will do your own grocery shopping, you will do your own cooking, everything will be done by you, but you will be amongst other seniors. So they provide carefree, stress-free lifestyle that removes some of the drawbacks of trying to remain in your own home. So that's probably one of the first steps of either moving out of your homes or living in your own home with assistance, with a little bit of assistance. So here we have some costs that for Scarborough and Ottawa. Toronto downtown might be a little more expensive. So as I mentioned, it's as of 2019 and COVID prices are different. Assisted living. So the next level after independent living is assisted living, where you might need some assistance or a lot of assistance depending on your lifestyle and your health. So it is ideal for residents of all ages who have some limitation in physical and cognitive health. So all the assisted living facilities as of today should be AODA certified, so that wheelchair access, all their elevators will be have wheelchair access. So the requirements by the government or the healthcare agencies are implemented. So assisted living is a part of the traditional continuum of care, a model of care services that is changing with time as and how our requirements also change. So assisted living also has on-site medical and care staff, so they'll have a PSW. So they might not have a PSW or a personal support worker just for you. So in some of the assisted living facilities, there will be one PSW approximately for 10 to 12 seniors, or they might be available on call. So you need to understand that they are not specifically private care. They are basically on share, so your costs will be low. Basic amenities include central dining room where seniors can socialize without having to leave the community, lounges, landscape grounds. You will have a community kitchen at some community garden at some places where you can do gardening during summer and spring so that you are active. Unit styles are typically a rented private studio 1 or 2 bedroom apartments, depending on are you going to live alone or are you going to live as a couple, or even small homes with kitchenettes, including a small refrigerator and microwave. So here is a breakup of costs. So the first one, just talking about Etobicoke, and then we have care details included, let's say housekeeping. Housekeeping will be cleaning your unit, not hard cleaning. So they are not cleaners. So you have to remember, a personal support worker can do a little bit of vacuuming, carpet cleaning, changing your sheets. That's part of their duty. But if your bathroom is like you want to scrub the bathroom tiles and things like that, you need to call a cleaning service, not a PSW. So that's why housekeeping, all PSWs are trained to do, but it's only light. So they're more there to take care of you, not take care of your house or a condo or an apartment. So in Toronto, it will probably cost you around $4,500, so which could include housekeeping, meals, bathing once a week, transfer, dressing, feeding, incontinence, medication administration. Medication administration will be costly addition because normally personal support workers are not allowed to disperse the medication. They can give it in your hand and say, Mr. Mahesh, please take this, and I have to take it by myself. They cannot put it in my mouth. So you will have to probably, if you're not able to take the medication, you might have to hire an RN or an RPN, which will be on service or available at the assisted living facility, because a registered nurse will always direct the PSW to do whatever needs to be done. So that's when the cost will go up. And then Ottawa housekeeping, same thing, cost is a little bit less. So now I hand off to Vivek to talk about long-term care in Ontario.
Thank you, Mahesh. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vivek Nayak. I'm the president of the Ontario Konkani Association. I have over 17 years of long-term care experience. Today, I will talk about long-term care homes in Ontario. First slide, please. Now, before I talk about long-term care homes, just a few caveats. I'm not advocating on behalf of any long-term care home in Ontario. And some of the numbers that I've compiled might have changed in the last few days. So please do your own research before making any decision. Now, today I will talk about what a long-term care home is, the difference between a long-term care home and a retirement home, the rates that a long-term care home can charge and what the services provided are, the types of long-term care homes, and the process of applying to and getting admitted to a long-term care home. Next slide, please. Now, what is a long-term care home? Long-term care homes are places where adults can live and receive access to 24-hour nursing and personal care. People often need long-term care when they have a serious ongoing health condition or disability. The need for long-term care can arise suddenly as a result of a heart attack or stroke, but most often it develops gradually as people get older and frailer, or as a result of an illness or disability getting worse. Now, what's included in nursing care would be medication management, infection control, falls prevention, and visits by a physician on a regular basis, and discharge planning and education. Personal care would include help with almost all activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing up, grooming, feeding, toileting, and so on. Next slide, please. Now, often people confuse between a retirement home and long-term care home, assuming that they are one and the same, and they use it so in their common parlance. But there are several differences between the two, and the major ones are highlighted here. The first one is regarding funding. The Ministry of Long-Term Care Home funds long-term care homes on the basis of the licensed beds in the home, whereas this is not the case in a retirement home. So the entire cost has to be borne by the residents themselves. The services provided in a long-term care home would include 24/7 nursing and personal care, which is not so in a retirement home. But anyone wanting a personal nurse could pay for it and avail of that service in a retirement home. And the co-payment that a resident makes to a long-term care home, as you will see in the next chart, is fixed by the Ministry of Long-Term Care. Whereas a retirement home could charge, as Mahesh said, anywhere from 4,000 and upwards, depending on their location and the number and kind of services that they provide. Next chart, please. Now, the monthly rates for a long-term care home depend on whether the accommodation is basic, semi-private, or private. A basic room could have anywhere between 3 and 4 beds, and the rate currently is about 1,892 per month. Now, there is a difference between A-class homes, which are built to newer standards, and the B, C, and D homes, which are built to the old standards. So as you can see, I've termed the room as semi-private for an A-class home, but actually it's a basic room with 2 people. Just for convenience, I named it semi-private. The rates there are a little bit higher than a B, C, and D home. The same with private rooms. The rate is 2,702 in an A-class home and 2,474 in a B, C, or D class home. Now bear in mind that for a basic room, there could be further rate reduction if a resident is unable to afford the rate. He or she could apply to the long-term care home for a rate reduction based on their notice of assessment for the most recent year. Now I know of a case where a resident moved from outside Canada, sold his business there and had some assets, but unfortunately had no income at all. So when he was admitted to a long-term care home as a result of a stroke, he provided them with a notice of assessment which showed 0 income. So he was paying no amount to the long-term care home at all. The entire amount was subsidized by the Ministry of Long-Term Care. Next slide, please. Now, what services are included in the rates that residents pay to the long-term care home? It's 24/7 nursing care, about which I spoke earlier, 3 meals a day with 2 options for each meal. The meals are prepared under the supervision of a registered dietitian. So they do cater to individual needs of the resident based on their health issues, like somebody having diabetes or blood pressure, or someone having a feeding problem, in which case the meals are provided in a diced, minced, or a pureed form. Housekeeping and laundry services, which would include cleaning of the rooms, the beds, the common areas, and laundry services, which would involve clothes to be laundered. Activations, outings, and entertainment. Activation would include physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and in some cases, Tai Chi, yoga, and so on. Outings would include visits to places outside the long-term care home, like a movie theater or a park, or even a cruise on the harbor, and so on. And entertainment would include in-house entertainment like movies, or entertainers coming in and performing music or dance, or even exotic pets being brought into the home for the entertainment of the residents. But not included in your charge would be personal services like hairdressing, or a personal cable and television, or a telephone by your bedside. In that case, the installation and the monthly recurring charge would have to be paid by the resident. The long-term care home would have a lounge where a TV would be provided, but that is a shared one, and anything of a personal nature has to be paid for by the resident. Dental services, hearing aids, eye care has to be borne by the resident himself or herself. And other personal expenses like transportation to medical appointments or visits to family would have to be paid for by the resident. Next slide, please. Now, the types of long-term care homes in Ontario. There are 3 types of homes: public or municipal homes. These are operated and owned by the city of the place where the home is located. The not-for-profit homes. These are owned and operated by not-for-profit entities. For example, the Yi Hong Center, which has homes in Scarborough and Mississauga. The for-profit homes owned by corporations and other entities, which can distribute their profits to shareholders or partners. Now, over 3 of the 630 homes in Ontario catering to over 77,000 residents, about 16% of the homes are public or municipal, 24% of the homes are not-for-profit homes, and 60% of the homes are for-profit homes. Now, regardless of the type of long-term care home, the charges are the same for residents based on their type of accommodation. Next slide, please. Now, the process to apply for a long-term care home and get admitted there. The Local Health Integration Network, or Lynn as I would call it going forward, coordinates all applications and admissions to long-term care homes in Ontario. Now, there are 14 such LINs, as I'll show you in the next chart, where you could apply for admission to a home. So a person who wants to get admitted should not approach the long-term care home directly, as all the applications are processed through the LIN. The LIN coordinator will carry out your needs assessment and determine your eligibility, coordinate the application process, place your home on the waiting list for the long-term care homes you have selected, notify you when a bed or place becomes available, and facilitate your home move into the long-term care home. Next slide, please. Now here's the map of the LINs. As you can see, there are 14 LINs in Ontario. Most of our Konkani community would be in the GTA area, so they should be looking at homes in the GTA area itself. I've provided a link on my last chart for the LINs, wherein they could click and just put in the postal code where they want to be admitted when they decide to move into a long-term care home, and that will give them the details of the LIN. Next chart, please. Now, the forms to be submitted to the LIN would include a contact information form, providing basic information such as name, current address, contact people, name of your family physician, etc. An evaluator questionnaire, which determines the capacity to make admission decisions, a consent form, which allows the LIN to obtain information about you, assess your needs, and determine your eligibility, and a health report that includes your most up-to-date medical information, and that must be completed by a doctor, a registered nurse, or a nurse practitioner. Next slide. Now, the eligibility criteria. Once an application is made, the LIN determines whether you are eligible for admission to a long-term care home. A person has to be at least 18 years of age or older to get admission into a long-term care home. He or she has to have a valid Ontario license, health card. The health card needs can be met at the long-term care home. And there are insufficient government-funded community services that can meet your needs. And finally, anyone needing the following can be admitted to a long-term care home. Availability of nursing care 24 hours a day, assistance with personal care at frequent daily intervals, and frequent supervision or monitoring throughout the day. Next slide, please. Now, selecting a nursing home. You may select up to 5 nursing or long-term care homes and list them in your order of preference. You and your family members could tour the long-term care home in order to assist you in making the choice. This could be done by either calling the social worker that works in the home or the administrator, fixing up an appointment and actually visiting them to look at all the facilities, the rooms, and so on. Now, with the COVID, there may be restrictions on visiting a home. So people could go on the website of the home they have selected and just take a look at all the facilities in a video or photographs. Now, persons can choose either of the private, semi-private, or basic rooms. Next slide, please. Now, the placement process. I'll go through quickly with this. The application is sent to each of the long-term care homes that you have selected. As I said before, you could select up to 5. If a home is unable to meet your needs, it will send you a letter indicating the reasons why. Now, the reasons could be somebody needs oxygen throughout and the home is unable to provide it, or there's need for a secure unit for a person who's wandering and the home doesn't have one, or if a person has applied for a private accommodation and the home to which they have applied has no private vacancy. Now, while you are on the waiting list, you must keep the LIN informed of any change in your health condition, your address, or plans regarding placement. You may change your mind and decide not to move into a nursing home. that has to be conveyed to the Lynn. They will contact you to reassess your eligibility for long-term care every 6 months. The Lynn will let you know when your name is nearing the top of the waiting list. Now, currently, there are over 35,000 persons on the wait list, and the waiting period could be as much as 152 days. That's about 5 months. Now, if you are in hospital, the discharge planner or the social worker will be involved in planning your next move. So here are some useful links which could be of help to anyone looking to move into a long-term care home. Thank you everyone for listening patiently to my presentation. Back to you, Mahesh.
Thank you so much, Vivek. It was really informative. So I think two of the things I noted down in my notes to ask or to continue our presentation was, one of the first things is the eligibility questionnaire. The reason that's very important. So I'll give you an example. If, let's say, my mom is not well and she has Alzheimer's, and we cannot take care of her because she wanders away and she's lost. So we need to get her into the long-term care. So the case manager from Lynn will come and ask you all as a family, what is the problem? So we all kids say, oh, my mom has Alzheimer's, she wanders away, blah, blah, blah. And then she makes note of it. Then she asks, okay, Miss Senior Nileshwar, how do you feel? She says, I am good. I am okay. That is the answer the Lynn case manager will take note of, not how much suffering you as a family are going through. So it is very important to note that the questionnaire has to be, or finally will be, assessed by the case manager with the client. So that's very important to remember. The second thing is discharge planning. So discharge planning is when the patient is at the hospital beds are in short supply. So they decide to say, okay, now Mr. Nileshwar, we don't have space in the hospital. We have to move you to your home. So I probably Pramod will later mention about this. What happened when his mom had a stroke? She went to the hospital. The discharge planner called him and said, we have to move her to your home. And then he immediately called me to ask, what do I do next? So I said, first thing you have to tell them, first thing I asked him, do you have a washroom on the main floor that can take care of her personal care like bathing? And he said, no. Do you have any room extra where she can stay, which can be converted to a bedroom? No. So I said, let the discharge planner know this, that you don't have a full washroom on the main floor, and there is no space on the main floor to stay. So we'll have to figure out, we need some time. We can't take her up and down the stairs every day or whenever she needs. So we need to wait. And he waited, and he let the discharge planner know this, and then they started looking for a long-term care home. So these are some of the things you need to be aware so that your discharge planning goes smoothly and the client or whoever, your parents, can move from the hospital to a long-term care facility. So what happens if your discharge planner says, no, we don't have space in the long-term care facility, you do not qualify, you have to be moved to your home? So that's when home care comes into picture. So what is home care? So home care are two aspects. One is government funded and one is privately funded. So one government funded, again, because the discharge planner or the hospital decides they don't have space in the long-term care and they don't, your only option is to stay at home. So they will provide the care. So the personal support worker hired by the Lynn or CCAC will come to your home to provide personal care, bandages or wound changing, or turning her at the end of the day, feeding her, depending on him or her, depending on the situation. So that is government funded. So there are certain agencies who have contracts with the Lynn and CCAC to provide this service, which will be free. So the personal support worker will come only depending on the condition of the patient, 1 hour, 2 hour per day, maybe alternate days. It's not continuous. You will never get 24-hour care from these government funded services. So you have to go for a privately funded service. So home visits by nurses, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, and social workers are typically available to cover an acute short-term need. So this is between discharging from an hospital, you come home, you're waiting for a long-term care bed. Once the long-term care bed is available, you move to long-term care bed and this service is stopped. So anyone can request an assessment for eligibility from the government. So you don't have to go to the hospital to get this type of care. But if you need, you can approach, as Vivek said, you can fill in the questionnaire and they will, based on the case manager's assessment, a PSW will be sent to your home. Privately funded home care services, which means you have to pay for the service. So privately funded home health care are a perfect way to augment community funded service. So this is a supplement to what the government provides. These companies come into home and provide elderly community members with help in areas that may not be covered by other social services, which I mentioned. These companies offer outside help for seniors that are accountable and professionally handled and are customized directly to the individual senior's needs. So what this means is we, as agencies, will look for qualified people. We'll do a background check. We'll make sure they have first aid and CPR. So all PSWs are not made equal. So you have to make sure that the agency that you are hiring knows these, and there is no kind of rules and regulations around these companies yet. So you have to be very careful when hiring companies and PSWs from those companies. And these companies can also be used by people living in a retirement home who want to extend their services they receive, including long-term care if they need. So survey of Canadian families showed that more than half of residents were unaware of the risks inherent in directly hiring a non-professional, non-certified, non-accredited individual to provide private home care. So what does this mean by non-professional, non-certified? So there are a lot of PSWs or personal support workers who are called child care or companion care, child care providers. So they're basically nannies who come from either Philippines, India, like from Kerala, or other parts of the world, but they are not professionally trained. There could be some nurses who come from India, Philippines also, but here the government has said you need to take a personal support worker course, which is very short, probably a couple of months, to be certified as a professional support worker. So they learn about certain things the government expects them or the healthcare agencies expect them to do. So that becomes a professional, a certified, and they get placement in long-term care homes so that during their course. So they get trained even before they go into the private practice. Some families hire personal care for an elderly family member based on a personal job interview and a few references. That also happens. Aging in your home is the first choice of many seniors, and there are a number of ways seniors can avail themselves of home care. And it's changing, and it's changing very fast. And with COVID, it has changed considerably. So you have to be very, very careful of what kind of services you hire and what kind of companies you look into. So home care, having difficulty coping with the tasks of daily living. So as I said, a PSW's duty is to make meals for you, not tandoori chicken and 5-course meal, but they are trained to make sandwiches. If the family members make food, they will heat it up and make sure you eat it. So if you're feeling isolated at home, you can hire them as companions. Personal care needs too much time. You cannot take bath because you can't get into the bathtub and get out of the bathtub. So you need help in all these things. So these are some of the things: housekeeping, home maintenance, family and other caregivers feeling overburdened. So you can have somebody come over for respite care. So some of the home care agencies have a minimum. So minimum 3 hours personal care and companionship. That's what is required or what is asked by the different agencies. Nightly care. So you might want somebody to come in the night, let's say 8 p.m., 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. So then they probably ask you for a 12-hour shift, so that they don't have to go home at 3 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock at midnight. So that's very important. So you need a nightly care. So nightly care is important, and the prices differ depending on the number of hours the client sleeps. So if you wake up once, is okay. If you wake up more than once, like 2 or 3, 4 times, for whatever reason, or you're not falling asleep, then you need a PSW who is going to be awake all through the night. So that's very important. If you're waking up only once, you can get a PSW who can probably sleep with you, and you press a button or say something and she wakes up and helps you. If it is more than 3 to 4 times, you have to make sure that the PSW is awake. So that's called an awake shift. So these are some of the things the agencies will ask you and provide you the right personal support workers. There's 24/7 care. What is the 24/7 care? So let's say you need somebody to be with your family member for 24 hours. But as I said, the person doesn't sleep at night. So what we do is we provide 3 different PSWs with 8-hour shifts, so that the person at night is awake, and then the person in the morning takes care of her bathing and all the other services, and in the afternoon some other work can be allocated. So there'll be 3 PSWs working 8-hour shift. Live-in care. What is the minimum requirement for a live-in care? The live-in care, you need to have a separate bedroom so she can sleep, do whatever her stuff in her own room, and washroom. Separate washroom is required. And they will only work 8 hours per day as per labor law. Just because they are at your home doesn't mean they'll work 24 hours. So you have to remember that. 8 hours. But you can always, once you build a relationship with the PSW, you can always adjust the hours. So let's say she wakes up at 7 o'clock. The client wakes up at 7 o'clock. Bathing is done. Breakfast is provided. She takes a nap from 12 to 3 or 12 to 4. So the PSW can take a break 12 to 4. And then the hours can be extended. So from 4 to 10 or 4 to 11, 4 to 9, whatever. So you discuss it with the live-in care PSW and plan accordingly. So some of the questions you probably want to ask some of the agencies that you will be interacting with. How many years has the home care agency been serving your community? What is the agency screening process? As I said, do you check for police clearance? Do you check if they have a first aid certificate, CPR? Do they know how to change the tubes? Do they know how to feed through the tubes? So these are some of the questions you need to ask. What are the costs for services? What services are provided? Because sometimes something is hidden, right? How does the agency handle billing? Is it every 2 weeks? Do we pay? Do we pay every month? Do we pay every week? Do we pay directly to the PSW? All that kind of stuff. Are agency caregivers available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? What if the PSW that was supposed to come and help your family member falls sick, cannot come? Do they have somebody else who can cover? So this is again prices before COVID. And as you know, the government has increased their PSW's basic salary by $2 or $3, which hopefully will become permanent very soon. So in Ontario, it is $20 to $30 per hour. And what are the services provided? Home support, basic personal care by a PSW, $50 to $60 an hour if she's going to be a RPN or a registered nurse. And 24-hour care approximately costs you $500 a day, and in Ontario for live-in care costs around $2,500 to $3,000 a month. And they will stay with you. They will not pay you any rent. You can subsidize the salary by saying, okay, we will take out $300, $400 as rent. So then the price will go down. So that's That's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening to me. And Vivek, I hand off to Sadanand Ma'am.
Thank you, Mahesh and Vivek. Absolutely great presentation. Lots of useful information. I know the listeners must be wondering, how can we keep all this information in our head, especially when we need it? So we will be sharing we have recorded this and we will be sharing the recording. Also, if you have any questions in future, you can still send it to us and we'll try to get the answers. Following this, we are going to have a question answer session. So during the question answer sessions, if some questions pop up in your mind, please do enter them in the chat box and we'll be monitoring it. With that, Anita, over to you.
Okay, so we are seeing a few questions in the chat box, so I'll start reading them. The cost mentioned by Mahesh, is it for person or a couple? I believe it's for a person, right, Mahesh?
That's correct. It's
Yes.
for a person.
Okay, and the next question is from Guru. Do we have statistical data on which type of long-term care were most affected during COVID? I mean, we know what was reported in the media, but Vivek, are you able to answer?
I don't think I have details of specific homes. It is for-profit homes, we know, because it was in the media. But specific homes, I wouldn't have the details.
Okay. What is the cost of having private nursing per hour to take care of a senior who needs bathing services, assistance to washroom, and needs to take care of the family if the family needs to go out of town? So, Niranjan, are you able to take this?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mahesh answered that question. There was one slide that, I probably will leave it to Mahesh to answer. I think it was around
Okay.
20 to 30.
Yeah, so the question, you have to make sure you don't use the words loosely. When you say nursing, as I said, when you say nursing, the price goes up. Nursing means the client has a wound, the client has a tube, something that needs a kind of a nursing care. So the nurse is needed. A personal support worker is one level below. She's the one who will do the bathing and home care companionship services. So that's around $20 to $30 an hour if you go through an agency. But if you go privately, you can probably get somebody for $20 to $18 an hour, because again, 15 is the minimum, and then the government has increased it by $3. So you might get somebody between $18 to $20 an hour, and then there won't be a minimum. But the problem with that is there is no guarantee she will come every day or every time you want her to come, because she's independent. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mahesh. Next question, is there data about price increase and cost of living at long-term care and retirement homes? Are they linked to inflation rates? For example, if current cost is $4,000, how much would it have been about 10 years ago? Vivek?
Well, the rates are linked to the cost of living and they are regulated by the Ministry of Long-Term Care. They have been increasing about $30 to $40 every year for the last many years. But since 2019, the ministry has frozen the rates because of COVID and because of low occupancy in long-term care homes. So I believe they're going to increase again from this year, probably at the end of the year or early next year.
Mahesh, would you like to add to that?
No, I think Vivek made the point, because the COVID is not over. So we are still in the process. So at the end of all this is when the government and the ministries will sit together and discuss where do we go from here. So I think it's a little bit too early, and the freeze is going to be there hopefully for the rest of 21, and I think up to mid 2022.
Okay. Next question. This is just a comment, it's not a question. For everyone, as a person who takes care of a senior at home who's dependent due to mobility issues, I find that the the chair for staircase is a lifesaver. It's expensive, but it is worth the investment. Just wanted to share with the viewers. Thank you for that. Srivatsan family. Ashlesha asks, please, can you share based on experience links or contacts for PSW services?
You can probably look for, if you want agencies, you can just search for home care on Google and you will get a list of them. You just make sure that they have been in the industry for a while, at least 4 to 5 years. So that's all I have to say.
I think, if I may just interject here, the way sometimes it works is if you have friends or relations who you have contacts with, and it's quite possible that they may have some services, it's always good to go with referrals. I've always believed that when you have a good referral, you probably are going to bank on that person's judgment, and it kind of gives you more ideas in addition to going cold calling and talking to everybody.
Mahesh, if I may ask a question related to that particular question, if home care services are required, is that something that the government would consider providing that person in that particular situation?
Which situation? Sorry, I didn't understand.
Instead of someone trying to hire a PSW privately, would the first step be more prudent to talk to the right authorities to see if the government can provide the home care services?
Yeah. So what will happen is because the family doctor will refer or is managing the care or overall situation in the hospital. So it has to come from the hospital or the case manager. So it has to come from Lynn. That's the bottom line for government help. If it doesn't come from Lynn, you are not getting any help from Lynn or public funded services. So that is why I tell people to talk to their family doctor. If you see any changes, in your parents or in your seniors' ability to do something, start talking to your family doctor, start mentioning, so that he starts logging in saying, oh, my mom, the client's mom is not feeling well. She can't do this. Because if you suddenly go tomorrow and tell the family doctor, he cannot really, because there's a long waiting list for all this, right? So if you start early, then you will get into the line, and then you will, when it really hits the roof, you will have some help. It's a very, very long and tedious process. So you have to qualify to get the service from the government. There is no other way. And hope I answered your question.
And Pramod, one other thing, which is what we did for my father-in-law at some point, when we found that he was finding it difficult to do things, a family physician knew about it. So the family physician also can recommend to the Lynn, by way of a letter or something, wherein they're saying, okay, you cannot do something. So the Lynn gets involved in that. And then they send a case manager, and the case manager kind of comes down and assesses the patient. Maybe some years back, things were very different, but now because of the sheer number of people that are involved with this kind of help, what happens is the government is only able to allocate a certain number of hours. So usually the case manager comes and assesses the patient and then decides, is it 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week or 2 hours a day, something like that. And then once you are in the system, then you keep talking to your case manager and making sure that, look, it's very difficult, and you appeal to their emotional thing. And sometimes, by repeated conversations and talking to the case manager or the social worker, whoever is coming, I think it makes a huge impact. And then slowly, what we were able to get 1 hour, 2 hours a week, we changed it to getting it about 2 hours a day for 5 days, right? So we were able to get to that stage. I mean, genuinely, we had an issue with managing my father-in-law, and over time, we were able to do it by persistent talking. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, who is that?
This is Prabhakar.
Sure.
Depending upon what type of senior assisted living, the payments that you make are tax deductible?
Are they tax deductible?
You can claim it in your Ontario portion of the income tax return for long-term care. I'm not sure about other areas.
So the
No,
entire,
I will have to get back to you. I never thought about that question.
Actually, for the home care, a long term, you're right. I mean, from the Ontario perspective, that is exactly the way it is, because there's a certain amount
Oh.
of money that is allocated. If I'm not mistaken, it's like 11,000. It's like 11,000 or something. And but again, your financial planner will probably tell you, a tax consultant will probably tell you about that. It's a standard deduction that is there. The way we did it was, you have a bulk amount of money that is on one side, and then you also have to factor in how much of money you're spending on your nursing care, I mean the PSW care. And if whichever amount is more, that's the angle, that's the way that you have to go to. That's how we kind of were doing it based on our tax consultant. But it's good to refer to a tax consultant on this matter.
because it does make a big difference as to we can afford or not. You know, if
Yes.
you are in a 50% tax bracket, it does make a difference.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And one more question, supposing in the independent living, if you maintain a car, if this type of senior living facilities, will they permit a car to be parked?
It depends on the facility. The problem, there shouldn't be a problem with independent living, but it could be a problem with assisted living, because the insurance and other things might be higher for the property owners, because you're in an assisted living facility. Independent, some might have, some might not have, based on, because the costs are higher if you're going to have a parking spot. And while you're driving down, if it's an underground parking, if you're driving down as a senior, if you have a situation, it could affect, and their insurance will go up, and a lot of things. So people or companies try to avoid having parking in these kind of facilities.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the questions. I'll read out the next question. For a live-in PSW, is it standard for them to work a 6-day week, or do they usually get the entire weekend off?
That's a good question. That's a very common question. So normally there is no law again, but it's generally 1 day for sure. You have to give them a break, which is normally considered Sunday. So the reason I'm saying that is, when we hire PSWs and when we schedule them for the weekends, mostly the PSWs we have are Filipinos, and they like to go to church on Sundays. So we cannot stop them from going to, all those kind of activities, and they need a break. So Sunday is for sure, but Saturday or any other weekday, you can decide to give them a break. It all depends on your situation, and it's between you and the party or the PSW that you're talking to, because they become a family member, right? The live-in person becomes a family member almost, because they are there 24/7. So you can discuss and adjust yourselves. You don't have to be very strict about it. But normally 6 days, 1 day off.
Okay, there are a couple of tax questions which I believe we've answered, and we'll be getting back to you on some of the questions. Is there a wait list even for help from Lynn for home care services?
Some of the home care services have been given to some of the organizations within the city, but again, it all depends on the case manager. If the case manager thinks you need help, you will get help. If the case manager thinks you don't need help, you will not get the help. So, and even if there is a waiting list, they can manage. There are many agencies that are signed up with CCAC who can provide the care.
Thank you, Mahesh. Let's see. To OKA, is it possible to send a digital print format of this presentation to the audience? Yes, we are going to be sending the presentation out, so you will all receive it. In some retirement homes, they do have parking. Oh, this is an answer from Shanta. In some retirement homes, they do have parking space, but the retirement homes are expensive. I think I captured everything that was in the
I
chat.
got one more question, if you
Okay.
permit me. The cuisine is a very important factor for seniors. Where can you get information with respect to the independent living or assisted living facilities providing South Indian cuisine?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and that's a very important question. Thank you for raising that, whoever raised that question. It's a very important aspect. You have to go to the independent living facility, look at the menus, and then decide. So there are certain independent living facilities who will not budge from what the menu is. So even though you pay a lot of money, there are certain institutions that would not change their menu based on what you need. So it is very important first to go and check if they are flexible. And some of the independent living units don't allow food from outside. And especially with COVID, it's even becoming stricter. So that's the only way of finding out.
So thank you. I had a similar question for Pramod about cuisine or food at long-term care homes. From your personal experience, Pramod, how do you manage the food at long-term care?
In our case, the long-term care has been very gracious to allow home food. So right through the COVID period, we've been sending home food from home. They take care to make sure it's all clean. There's the whole sanitation process, and where it's dropped off is strict protocol on how food was to be delivered. Well, now in stage 2 and 3, since we all got vaccinated, I can go back now in. So now there's not any such strict protocols, but during the peak of the COVID, there was very strict protocols to be followed, but it was possible in my case.
Thank you.
That's the reason why I said you need to talk to people, because we have somebody who's Sri Lankan, whose kids are in US. She's a mother, a single mother by herself. She's at one of the retirement homes in Richmond Hill. I cannot mention the name, but there she's a pure vegetarian. So they're paying through their nose, and the only vegetarian stuff she gets is the mashed potato before they add beef or whatever they need to add. That's kept separate. And before they add bacon, the beans are separated. And she's so tired of eating this food. And there is no way we can take food from outside. But we are trying to negotiate to see if we can provide some food from a federally certified agency. So it's very painful. It's very painful.
So it depends on the long-term care facility, I suppose.
Independent living facility, because they are all privately owned.
Okay. Next question. Will a stair lift chair be funded by CCAC for an eligible person? And if not, are there any other options to get this funded?
No, it is funded. If the case manager finds it suitable, it will be paid by the agency. Even if your house, outside, if you have few steps before you can get in, they will build a ramp for you. They will take care of everything. Again, the case manager is the god of all this situation. So she or he is very important. Anita? If they can do something, they will do something for sure.
Can I pitch in, Anita?
Yeah, please.
My dad was in long-term care as well. And we had home care services as well. All of the above that were addressed. So in terms of will that stair lift be funded? The answer is yes, but the government funds only one equipment, and it's 75% subsidized. So you pay 25% of the cost. So it's the most expensive. If you want to put the stair lift, you might want to go for that one. Yeah, 75% is covered. It's not 100% covered, 75% on the first item, and the others you have to pay yourself.
Thanks, Sureka. That was good. Yeah, that's important.
Absolutely. Just to add to that, the other choice you have to make, between that or the wheelchair, because the wheelchairs are also funded, but again, up to 75%. So that's where, as what Sureka said, you got to make that choice.
That's useful information. So I'm going to read out some other questions here. Which services live-in care staff provide? What arrangements one has to make for their food? This was answered by Mahesh, I believe. Mahesh,
Oh,
do you want
yes,
to?
yes. So normally they stay the food, so they can either, if you are lucky and you get an Indian person to do the live-in, then there is no food issue. If it is a Filipino or somebody else, you might have to provide them some space to do their own cooking. So that's very important.
Okay, thank you. This one's for Pramod, I think. What are the difficulties you have come across in providing long-term care for your near one? So can you share your experience finding a facility and how, like your personal experience, please?
Yeah, actually, having talked to a lot of people like Mahesh, it really helped, in terms of planning through the process. And in my experience, it was a really good experience because a lot of people showed up to help and provide guidance, and including sharing their own experiences. So, like Mahesh said, the person who handles this case, the case manager, is the God. And in our case, it really ended up being God, because she may put her foot down to say, my mom will not go home because she needs 2 people to handle her, moving her from the bed to the chair and back. So they said there's no way it can happen in the house, because they came home, and although my office room was already converted to a bedroom, and they had sent the the bed, the lift, and all of that was provided, but the last minute she made the decision that she will not be sent home. So really, the difficulty is really to manage expectations. I think if we have very, very high expectations, then we are in for some trouble. But I think if you, given the situation, food often is a challenge. Like we said, the food here is more westernized, and for people in my mom's case, she lived most of her life in India, so food is always a challenge. But thankfully, we've been able to send food from home, so she has almost 5 to 6 days a week home food, at least for the supper. They don't allow home food for lunch. So home, that is often a challenge. But other than that, I think the first, until the person gets into the facility, is where we've experienced a lot of challenges. But after that, knock on wood, things have really, been pretty good in terms of how things have progressed.
Okay.
Can I say, can I say something about the food? I have worked in long-term care and retirement home for 15 years before I retired. And it all depends on the food service manager. Sometimes the food service manager is very considerate. In our home, somebody came for about a month because the family was going on vacation, and she was a Gujarati lady and she didn't eat any other food. And our food service manager made sure that how the rotis are made and how the sabji is made and all that. And she was fed and she was very happy. When she left, she went and told everybody the home. It all depends on the administrator, I should say, of the home. If the administrator is strong and good and a good leader, these things can be tackled very easily. That's my experience. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shantapachi. That was helpful.
Okay, this one's for Vivek. In the long-term care facilities, what arrangements are made for relatives to visit? Are there any restrictions?
There are visiting hours and they could vary in each of the homes. So the best thing to do is to call the home to find out their visiting policy. Now with COVID, any visitor is required to do the rapid antigen test and wait for 15 minutes before they are cleared to go upstairs or to the rooms where the residents live. So there is a protocol in place and each home has to be contacted before deciding to visit.
Okay, this one I will. This was addressed in Vivek's presentation, but I will give this to Pramod to answer. What services are provided in the long-term care facilities? Do you have to pay extra for any services?
Yeah, there are a few services that you have to pay extra, like Vivek had it on the slide. You pay for the phone. If you need a phone beside your bed, then yeah, you pay for it. If you need a TV in your room, you pay for it. If you need any, hairdresser to come and cut her hair, yeah, you pay for it. Dentist, appointments you pay for, transportation you pay for, and so on. So, in a nutshell, all of these services are available. It's just a question of, you pay for certain services, and some other services, most other services are covered. Most importantly, the PSW, the medicine administration, and entertainment activities that they have. They very meticulously plan all this and execute it. At least that's been our experience. Although during COVID, obviously everything was suspended, but even now in stage 3, they've actually brought back a lot of those activities. So they have limited group activities where the number of residents at a time are limited, but they do have those activities. Even during stage 3. Same with entertainment. They have church services. They have, even Diwali is celebrated. For example, in my mom's home. So they have Diwali entertainment programs, which they did until 2019. So they're trying to be more and more conscious of the diversity of the residents and try and accommodate as many diverse traditions within those homes.
Thanks, Pramod. This one's for Vivek. If long-term care charges are standard, how do the for-profit homes make money?
Well, the ministry funds a major portion of the long-term care home expenses, but they also make sure that the amounts are spent within those departments or envelopes as they are called. So the ministry's funding is made for nursing and personal care, for programs or activities, and for raw food, and all other things are in the other accommodation envelope. So anything that the home doesn't spend in nursing, programs, or dietary has to be returned back to the ministry when they do the annual reconciliation. But anything in the other accommodation envelope, which funds basically the administrative staff salaries, the housekeeping and laundry salaries, and the dietary staff salaries, and so on, there, if there's any surplus, that can be the profit the home makes. And the second source is when the residents make their co-payment, the premium portion of the private and semi-private rooms, but not the basic portion, that is retained by the home as profit. So the basic portion of the private and the semi-private and the entire amount of the basic room rent is clawed back by the ministry when they make the funding every month. So it's only the premiums and the amount in the other accommodation envelope that can be retained by the homes as profit.
Thank you. I didn't know that. Next question, can you give more information about Nirvana? Is there a plan to have Meals on Wheels through this organization? I don't know who takes this.
I'll take it because that's my organization.
Okay.
That's a few years away. I hope to accomplish that before I reach Nirvana. So it is a project of a retirement home for our community. So we are in the talks. We are in advanced stages of doing something. So keep your ears and eyes open and your wallets ready, because it will be done it will happen very quickly. So just be ready. That's all I have to say.
Oh, that's nice. Thanks, Mahesh. This one is for Sureka. Is the funding for chairlift a one-time funding, or is there a time limit after which they will fund again? For example, an electric scooter or a replacement if required.
So I don't know the answer to that. My dad passed away before the time frame. Before, it's every 2 years there is a reevaluation of the equipment that the resident uses or the patient uses. So my dad passed away 2 years before. So I cannot answer that question. So I don't want to get into it. Maybe Vivek can look into it and get back.
There is a program called ADP, Assisted Devices Program. I don't know the full details, but people could just check out this program and see how frequently and what is provided and so on. It's called ADP.
We can look into it and get back to you.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any private long-term care private/LTC homes providing India South Indian meals right now? Yeah, that's what I want to know too.
Not to my knowledge.
No,
I
I'm
don't
not
think there
aware
are
of any.
Chinese based or Polish based or Italian based homes, but Indian, I don't think there's,
No, we don't
yeah,
have
There
any.
not
are
to my knowledge.
Can I interrupt, Anita?
Yeah,
Yeah, there are some projects are going on because I can't mention the names as such because don't belong to them anymore. But there is a project going on since last 3-4 years. I know that they have seen the areas and all, but basically what's happening, this is my personal opinion, from the last so many years, a different part of the communities try to have the seniors homes or community center for our community. But the problem is there is not enough mass. If all these people get together, they would have been able to do it. Main problem is everyone seems to have their own community center or own seniors home. I know that there have been quite a few uh, tries and people are still working on it. There is no doubt about it. But when it's going to happen, I don't know.
yep. And there's another comment here about cuisine. Cuisine is an important factor for seniors. A crying need of the hour is for an entrepreneur to build a senior home for South Asians.
Yeah,
Is-
so can I add to what just Sadanand mom said? So we have to come together as a community. We have to understand and follow the same rules that we need to follow when we send our parents to any independent living or retirement home institution. As of now, we charges like, let's say $4,000, $5,000 a month. The reason I'm saying this is I've been trying to, I'll give you an example. I wanted to take a house and convert it into a retirement home for our people. So some of the people said, yes, I want to send my mom there. I want to send my dad there. And then slowly they started saying, okay, if it was only like 1,500 or 1,800 a month because it was a small house and 4 or 5 people could live together. Then they started saying, okay, we will bring our own food. Can you reduce the price? We will do our own laundry. Can you reduce the price? This is why we don't have a retirement home today.
I think we need critical mass.
We
And
need
we can
critical mass.
really,
We need to
yes.
understand. We need to understand that we have to pay for services. Just because I'm a desi and you're a desi doesn't mean bargaining works all the time. It is the most important thing is health, and health is wealth. So we need to look for that. Is the reason why we don't have a retirement home today. Sorry for my
Yeah, thank you. Okay, one more. What is the waiting period for independent homes? Do we have to pay in advance?
Yeah.
How do we do it in advance?
Yeah, ma.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that because there is no database which says how much. And independent living is based on cost. So if you can pay 6,000, you can find a place tomorrow. If you want something for 3,000, maybe you have to wait.
Yeah.
But bottom line is there is no database of a waiting list for independent living because it's not centralized. It's all privately owned.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. How do I organize a specialized bed restroom setup without a case manager, and can this be claimed for?
No, I'm not aware. You cannot do it.
Maybe I can just rephrase that a bit. I just
Sure.
quickly typed it. So essentially, if you have someone coming in from India and needs immediate care, and we need to set up something in the house to start with, till she gets assessed by the doctors and then goes into a long-term facility. So I need to organize the house so that she's comfortable. What is the best and easiest way? And if I need to get a bed or a chair or whatever, can that be claimed after? So I don't mind paying for it up front, but can it be claimed? Does anybody know? Can it be claimed after?
I can tell you, I can just answer that question. Again, your financial person, a tax person is the best person to talk to. But anything that you do before the assessment generally will not be covered. It's only because, on what basis are you kind of claiming that? It's like, you cannot say that I'm going to be having a less tax burden, so I'm going to pay less tax, right now. So the government will not in my opinion, will not be party to it. After the assessment is done, and if there is a doctor's letter that kind of clearly outlines the condition in which you are buying this, based on that, because someone will ask you for proof, what is the purpose of this? On what basis are you claiming this? And you will not be able to furnish that proof. And that's why my honest answer is no, but you can check with your tax consultant again.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Is there a wait list even for help from Lynn for home care services?
Can you
I
frame
think
that
we
again?
answered this. I think we
Did
answered.
am I reading it again? Sorry.
Yeah, I think
I
we
thought
have.
I'd missed it. I went back and I thought I'd missed it. There's one more. I'm living by myself, no one to take care of me. I own a house and my age is 74. I'm self-supporting now, but what will happen when I cannot support for myself?
So I suggest that you talk to your family doctor and start, if you have any difficulties, you start recording it with your family doctor, and then, as hopefully you will live a healthy life for longer. But, that's probably the first step I would suggest.
Anita, can I
Yeah.
pitch in?
Yeah.
So a couple of things. I speak from personal experience. One of the things, going into a long-term care or anything is very difficult decision, whether it's as a person or as putting your parents in there. It's a very difficult decision, very challenging. One of the things I would say when you're in the person who asked this question, if you're in good health, is to familiarize yourself with day programs and all the things that they have. And you start getting to know this and getting comfortable with the whole environment. And later on, when the time comes, you're more in a better frame of mind to transition into that kind of living. You should try that. That would be a better way to go.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, Surekha. That's very nice.
Thanks, Surekha. I think I've read all the questions. There's just one comment. Thank you, Mr. Mahesh and everyone else for answering the questions. Punjabi Healthcare Services is non-for-profit and they have certified PSWs and services. They also help seniors who do not have OHIP in case of emergencies. They cater to seniors in Brampton and Malton.
Yeah, there are some community organizations like Indus Community, Punjabi Community Health Services. There are few community agencies funded by United Way that can provide PSW services. Again, you have to go through their intake process and they will provide some help.
Okay, so I've read all the questions. Any more questions, please type in the chat or feel free to ask the question.
Thank you, Anita.
There's a hand raised.
Yeah, that's
Was
what
there
I
a
was
hand
wondering.
raised?
Yeah. Narendra ji has raised his hand. Maybe he has some comments.
Okay. Narendra ji, please.
Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, he's unmute now.
Yes, thank you very much. My question is answered, and I'll go through my family doctor. Let's see what can he do for me. Thank you very much.
There is another hand raised.
Srinivasan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pradhan?
Yeah, go ahead.
Question is, how do we keep in touch with the Nirvana? He said, watch for Nirvana. How do we watch it? How do we get to know what Nirvana is going to do? What is the way to do it? Is there a newsletter or not newsletter, maybe too late? Is there a communication, faster communication to do?
Yeah, I mean, in the slide presentation, there will be my email address. You can just communicate with me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mahesh. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, I have one simple question to Pramod. Pramod, when this is off the line point came up, when we talk about the long-term care and all, some people say, well, it's so difficult, it's not pleasant, etc. But you seem to have good opinion, good experience. So is it possible for you to indicate where you are getting this long-term care?
Yeah, so my mom is in the village of Erin Meadows in Mississauga. It's on Winston Churchill, just north of Eglinton. And it's run by Schlegel Villages. That's the company that runs it. And they have a chain of homes across, I think, even Canada. I'm not sure about that, but they have a number of homes.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that they will start getting the calls from our audience. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, that was when we looked at all the homes, when we did the initial visits to these homes, that was actually third on the list, on our list. Again, I think, the way it happened, the first opportunity came through from this home, and we were very happy with what we saw in all the 5 homes. They're all Mississauga. It's very close to us, so it's literally a 5-minute drive for us, any of these homes that we had picked.
I think, Pramod, it's also important to mention from the hospital, she was moved to a facility in Milton, I think, before you could get this one. So there was some kind of a temporary arrangement made for your mom till she got moved into the one that is close to your home.
That's right. The initial plan was to move her home with home care services. That's why I mentioned, the bed was sent and the lift was sent and everything was ready for her, coming back home. But then, the case manager decided that that wasn't going to be the case. So they have a temporary facility in Milton, and I don't know if they actually publicize it, but for extreme cases that where it's just not possible to move, patient to the home, they move them to Milton in that facility. It's inside the hospital. And she was there for 3 months or so until the bed became available at where she's now.
Can I say something? As per Sadanand's thing, it's all mindset. Going to a nursing home, people think, oh, going to nursing home. But for me, my personal experience in a nursing home, and I feel if your mindset is, when the time comes, I'm willing to go, then it is not that difficult. That's what I feel. And that's what my plan is. In case I'm not capable of, we are already downsized. We are in a condo now. We don't have a house. But if a situation comes, I can't take care of myself, I won't be in Toronto in a nursing home. I'll be in Windsor in nursing home close to my daughter. So help her out. It's all mindset, how you feel and how you think about it. And I think
for
that's
that,
a positive way of thinking for me. I don't know about others, but for me, I think that's a very positive way of thinking.
Yeah, I think that adds to what Surekha just said, to familiarize yourself with the long-term care homes around wherever you want, around your home, around your community, or around your kids where they live, things like that. So that's a very good suggestion.
Just to add to that, in my mom's case, because she's bed bound, there's a couple of seniors that actually come there and volunteer. One of them is 82-year-old. She takes the bus, she comes there, she volunteers, she spends time with the residents and just to talk to them, and it's such a great help. So that's one of the things I thought I'd mention. If there's anybody here that can, in that age where they're retired and have some time and not sure what to do, this is a great opportunity. I'm sure a lot of homes support this, and the residents just find it immensely helpful. Just talking to them for
absolutely.
Yeah, it's called friendly visitation. And we, the senior advisory council I sit on, we have a 96-year-old driver. He's a volunteer driver. So I say, I'm always scared to drive with you. He says, I drive safer than you. I can assure you that much. He drives all the seniors around. So yeah, please, if you can help, good.
And the other thing I just I'd like to add is, my mom's been there for over 3 years now in that home. And having spent a lot of time at the home, I've closely seen how hard that work is to support somebody who needs 24/7 full support. And it's just a thankless thing. It's just unbelievable amount of work they put in, each of the staff. And only when we see it, I figured, we go in with an expectation, but when we see them do all the hard work, it's just incredible.
Exactly.
We just have to thank them for it. So much.
It's very easy burnout. If you work in a nursing home, very easily you get burnt out. I'm talking from my personal experience. It's
and
definitely
through the COVID season was no easy.
Oh, that's worse. That's worse.
And I just wanted to say how I just feel very, very thankful, for the experience we've had so far.
Thank you. Vivek, do you have any last comments?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's good.
I've got a question for Pramod. Could you please give the name of the home your mother is?
She's at the village of Erin Meadows in Mississauga.
Village of Erin Meadows?
Yeah. It's at the corner of the Erin Meadows, the Winston Churchill and Eglinton.
Thank you.
They're going to be getting a lot of calls.
One more question for Pramod. So in this place that you placed your mother, is it a combination of some private services and some government, or is it just government, or how is it?
No, it is. It's basically like what was outlined on the slide. You pay, I think it's 1,800 and something that's paid, because she got a basic room, and in her case, the basic is like a semi-private. So there's another resident. And the good thing about that is they have actually become friends now, because the other resident has also been there for some time. They spend time talking to each other. Although the other one is she's Croatian and she doesn't know English, but they do sign language, and it just gives them. I find like that's a better experience than being yourself in one room and not being able to go out by yourself.
Oh, that's great.
So
that's
actually,
great.
Yeah, so it actually worked out pretty well, and that's all I'll say for now.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hi, this is Anuradha Naimpally. I'd like to just talk about my experience, if that's okay.
Please go ahead, Anu.
I'm just going to start my video. Hi, yeah. So our mom lives here in Toronto. I live in the States, and my brother lives here upstairs from her. So we're now in need of some extra care. So we're sort of at the beginning of this process. And Mahesh has been really, really helpful in guiding us through this. And a couple of times the caseworker from Lynn had come, but she didn't qualify for any help because she's physically able and was able to answer all the questions accordingly. And so she was disqualified. This last time, it was very clear that she couldn't answer the questions. And so she did qualify for 3 times a week for an hour, somebody to come and actually just instruct her to bathe and remind her, although she's capable of doing it herself. And in the meantime, independently, we're also interviewing for a live-in PSW. And so that's been another whole experience. And of course, Mahesh has guided us again. There's lots of things to think about. We decided not to go through an agency. You can also put notifications and ads on certain Facebook groups for caregiving in Toronto or whatever city you live in. And so we decided to go that route, but then you have to be really careful in screening them and getting the police clearance and all of that. So we think we've narrowed it down. And so we'll be hiring somebody very soon for that. But yeah, it's a very difficult and painful experience to navigate through. So it's really nice to have this community and all this guidance. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
You mentioned about the home where your mother is. You said it's part of a group. What's the name of the group? I don't know whether they have any places outside Mississauga. We live in Scarborough. We would like to know if there's anything from that group in this area.
It's called the Schlegel Villages. Schlegel Group, I believe.
How do you spell it?
Schlegel, I think.
SCHLE.
Yeah, Schlegel, GEL.
Okay.
First of all, I also want to thank Anu from joining from Texas and sharing your experience. Thanks, Anu.
Actually, I'm here in Toronto right now.
Oh, great.
Yeah, trying to get all this settled. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your experience.
Sure.
Srini had his hand up.
Yes.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Sandhya here.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I've already asked.
Hear me?
Pramod, that's good.
Sorry, who was that?
Somebody named Sandhya.
I have a feeling she can't hear us, but we can hear her. Sandhya ji? Not sure what technical problem is there. If at all she gets back, we'll give her an opportunity. Any of you on the panel has any last comments, questions, suggestions, recommendations, tips, anything of that nature?
Yeah, for before we end, my last thing is that, oh, look at your hand. Everything is not same. Everybody is not same. Everybody's case is not same. Everybody's solution is not same. So please don't assume because X had a great experience, your experience will also be good. It all depends on, we all work as a team. We all work together to get the best care to the person you love most. So that's the basic goal of all this. So please do not compare, do a lot of homework. It's very stressful. It's very difficult. You know, you have to take care of somebody. You have to make sure you have to follow all these rules. You have to talk to the case manager. Yes, it is difficult, but we are all in this together. If you need, reach out, talk to people, try to understand. And again, it's all different and it's not easy. So that's all I have to say. And thank you for listening to me.
Very well said, Mahesh. If you have any more questions, you can reach out to us. Our email, I mean, Vivek's and Mahesh, they both put their email addresses in the presentation. The presentation will be going out soon.
Just one last question. I dozed off during the presentation. Who is the case manager? How does he come into picture?
So a case manager is part of the Lynn or CCAC, which is going to be renamed. The CCAC stands for Central Community Access Center, something like that. Anyway, they're gone. So they are part of the Lynn, and they are the ones who will be who manage who are called case managers. So Lynn owns these case managers, or they work for the Lynn, and PSWs are designated by the case managers or the agencies that they hire.
Thank you.
Okay, as Anita had indicated, if any of you have any additional questions, do send them to us. Most of you have my email address. If you don't have any other connections, do send them. At this point, I'd like to thank the speakers, Mahesh and Vivek, for excellent presentations. You have given lots of information and encouragement. Thank you so very much. Also, Niranjan and Pramod, thank you for sharing very important information, your experiences. It really helps. Anita, very well done. Greatly handled the Q&A session. Thank you. Before I say bye, I would like to thank two other people. Number one is the SVBF and especially Dr. Lakshmanan. I literally thrive on his support as well as encouragement. Unfortunately, he was not able to join. Thank them. And of course, the voice once in a while you heard, giving us some information on chairlifts, etc., as of none other than our past president, Surekha Shenoy. Believe it or not, the day she became the president, since then, even today, she has been a great help. Today also, she has been behind the scene, handling the technical support, etc. And thanks to her, I mean, lucky me that she has promised continued support. Thank you, Surekha. We will be depending on you quite a lot. With that, I think we are near the end. One thing I wanted to mention, our next session is on August 8th. It will be the third technical support workshop for the seniors, and we will be focusing on the phones and social media, etc. So please do plan on attending it, as well as let your friends and family know. With that, all that I can say is keep healthy, keep safe, and keep in touch. Till the
And
next
yeah,
session.
thank you, Sadanand Ma'am, for even thinking up these relevant topics.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody,
Thank
and
you.
namaste.
Yeah, thank you.
Namaste. Bye, everyone.
Bye.